Well, I'm Randy Porter, and our company is AgTech Business, and we do a few different things, but we really specialize in designing, selling, installing, and maintaining video security systems and surveillance systems. And John and I both are from farm backgrounds, and we like working with farmers. And we started off with farmers, and we kind of stuck. That's the bread and butter of our business. Maybe because we're so stupid, we didn't know enough to get out, but we stuck with them, and now things are doing well. We've been at it about 8 years. So we do some other things, C-stores, storage units, but we really focus on agriculture and agricultural businesses, processing plants. We work with the people that sell most of the eggs to McDonald's, Daybreak Foods. So we're involved in the processing end of things too. When you look at our systems, they kind of tends to break down into two types, either general security or animal welfare. Covers a great part of ours. Now, employees are in there, they probably in the security thing. We'll show you some videos about that. A lot of the guys don't have a lot of employees, but the ones that do, it's a good idea to keep a watch on them for their safety, to be reinforced when things are being done right and wrong both. So those two areas really are the main focus of our business. And to that extent, this is one of our newer cameras, pretty darn sophisticated. What you're looking at there is a clear shot of a license plate with the headlights shining right at the camera. So there's software to compensate for all that. So we can get a clear shot of a license plate, day or nighttime, either one. Now, in addition to that, we have new software available that can actually create a list of vehicles that should be on your property and that shouldn't be on your property. It automatically compare that license plate to that list. And we can also combine it with a security gate to make it even more foolproof. So that is something that's very popular with our customers, especially with the processing plant and so forth. And then biosecurity is a big issue for everybody. You want to know who's coming and going. So that's a pretty new product for us. One thing I want to point out, Eric, our main installer, is a farmer himself. Whenever we get new products out, we hook them up and test them, usually on his farm. So we're not sending this is a dynamic business. Things change pretty fast. So we don't want to be beta testing with our customers. We take our new products and we test them out first. So you guys don't have to worry about your customers getting new stuff that doesn't work correctly. A good example of that, we had access to, the Ring cameras are real popular right now, which work great in houses. They're not very good we don't do wireless cameras. And we thought we had one and we tested it out, it just didn't work that great, bottom line. So we're not going to make it available just yet. So that license plate camera is big part of our business. Now I want to show you a little bit about all our cameras have night vision capability. It's built in. This is a little bit of an example of how little difference there is between night and day. You can really see pretty clearly. And actually, these pictures are a little bit dated. At this point, most of our cameras actually have more color at night. It's just almost identical to the daytime picture. Here's another example. That's daytime, that's nighttime. So you can see the area in the lot there is just as well lit up. And here's another little example. So we determine the effectiveness of our cameras as far as distance by the night vision capabilities. All cameras see into infinity, essentially. How far they can see at night is something you can quantify and track. So when somebody asks you how far a camera can see, it's more important how far it can see at night with the infrared technology. Now, there's some general, some things that are generally, more commonly stolen. People are more concerned about. Fuel is one of them. Tools are one of them. These are things we hear about over and over again. So a lot of the times when we do a system for a farm or a ranch, they want to keep an eye on the fuel barrels. Pretty common sense. And then our cameras have the ability to zoom in. So if you did see something that looked out of place on the original picture, you can go in, mechanically zoom in, or if you're on the camera itself, some of them will zoom in mechanically through your phone, so you can take a little closer picture of it. You can see it's pretty crisp pictures. You get numbers off there. You can see everything you need to see. This is something we've come up with that we use in conjunction with the license plate cameras, or separately. It's a security gate with a camera attached to it. So you've either got somebody watching that gate and letting people in and out according to who's coming up to it and so forth. And it's and then we can also hook it to that license plate camera that I showed you earlier. So if the vehicle's on the list, it lets it in. If it's not on the list, it won't let it in. So pretty sophisticated security stuff. By the way, I don't want to go too quick, but if you got any questions, feel free to ask. At the end, I'll be glad to answer any questions for you too. Something else we get a call for. So just a little bit of background on our cameras again. Everybody likes to talk about wireless cameras. It's kind of a buzzword. It's a little bit of a myth in my mind, in that all cameras have to have some kind of power to them. So yeah, there's ways of getting that signal, that video signal wirelessly from that camera to your TV or whatever, but you still have to have power to that camera, either batteries, a hard wire of some kind. It's something they don't really mention too much in the wireless stuff. Additionally, wireless equipment, and we're on the lookout for it, it's being developed, but at this point, the situations we put these cameras into with the interference and the metal buildings and all the other activity, it's just not, they just don't perform. So all our cameras are hardwired, the camera itself. Now, we'll go into a little bit later, we can send those signals wirelessly over distance, but the cameras themselves will have to have some electricity. So what do you do if you don't have electricity? You know, we did this for a feral hog ranch down south. You put up a solar panel and you can run it right off the solar panel. And then we can, instead of hooking to the internet, we can go to the nearest wireless phone connection and do it that way through the satellite. So we can literally put a camera anywhere that we need to. Now, clearly that's a little more expensive, and it's not always necessary, but we do it every now and then. But this is somewhat what it looks like. It's nice and compact with the camera and everything all on one pole. So it's all self-contained. And you'd be surprised how many people we run into with property. Certainly doesn't have the internet, but a lot of times it doesn't have power either. Right. An old farm that they're still farming, but they don't have any buildings on it at all. This is just kind of a general good picture of what a good driveway camera can do. You get an absolutely clear picture of everything coming and going. We just have some other examples of what our cameras can do as far as clarity. I like this one. This kind of feeds, that's a bad pun. It goes into what you guys are doing. That's a bunch of healthy looking cattle there, kind of like the ones I see in your buildings. But it's just nice to be able to keep track of them. They can see a down animal, obviously calving, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as one of the greatest uses for cameras. People that have them, that didn't have them before, will never go back without them. And you know, ROI is a great thing. Everybody likes to talk about ROI, and I don't talk about it too much, but I can tell you it only takes 1 or 2 calves or cattle saved to literally pay for a system like that. And we hear those stories all the time. That's not something we're making up. We see people at the fair say, I had a cow down, I saw it on the camera, we got out there in time to save the cow and the calf and that kind of thing. So it is a reality that you can save some money off of it, and just generally keep a better eye on your livestock and see how they're doing. We another picture of a cattle barn. Now again, just calving, it's just such a great use for cameras, because those guys are used to getting up at 2 in the morning and walking through the snow and going out there and taking a look at it. And they bring up their phone and look and see how things are going and going back to sleep. Then it's kind of interesting, people that do lambing, and all our cameras have this capability too, but they can tell as much from the noise the ewes are making as they can by looking at it.
So these have sound also?
They have capability to have a microphone so they can listen into how the ewes are doing. We hear that from sheep people all the time.
Now, are these recorded, or can you record these?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, all our systems are recorded. But we don't do it in the cloud. We have a hard drive in the MVR. I should have brought one. The MVR is about the size of my laptop, and it has a hard drive inside of it. And we design our systems to record with all cameras going for about 30 days.
Oh, okay.
At that point, it drops off and starts recording fresh, and the oldest is gone. 30 days is enough to discover problems, missing items. For most part, that's enough. And the hard drives are a little expensive, so we don't want to put in 6 months worth of recording. Now, if you're monitoring employees, that's a little bit different thing. You would probably want a longer record time so that when the gentleman says, I missed work because I got hurt myself, well, you weren't here that day. So
Right.
Those kind of things come up. So with employees, you want to record a little bit longer. Just general security, we aim for a month. And you can access that recording on a monitor or actually right on your phone. You can go right to it and see what happens. I have guys that run some of the hog buildings. They'll come in the morning. It takes a minute or so just to review the whole night, just to make sure no strangers were coming in and out. Guys get into that habit, just looking at it in the morning to make sure everything's okay. So yeah, absolutely is recorded. All our systems have recording capability.
Okay.
And I like the hard drive. I mean, everything's in the cloud now, but I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't always work like it should, the cloud and all that. So this is a little more of a sure thing. Okay, let me see what we are. Nice picture of a loadout area. Guys like to keep track of how many cows are going on that truck and coming off, because sometimes there's a discrepancy there. It's nice to have a reference to go back to and actually count or look at it. Some nice cattle pen shots. We do a lot of cattle pens. That's probably from PTZ, which we'll also talk about in a minute here. That's a pretty good nice shot of a cow or calf. I don't know, a few yards off there. Just a little variety. Okay, so now we're getting into the bigger shots, and our top camera, you may hear this term, is called a PTZ. That's for pan, side to side, tilt up and down, and zoom in and out. Pan, tilt, zoom. You see them around, they look like street lights. This is one of our newest ones. I want to bring this because this thing is pretty darn cool. This is what we call our deterrent camera. They've been working on this motion technology for quite a while, this motion sensitive. It's great, except when you're outside and leaves are blowing and deer are walking by and dogs are running around, and it's been kind of ineffective because of that. Inside, it's great. You put it in a shop, program it to not activate till say 10 o'clock. Then if somebody comes in that shop, boom, the camera comes on and you're good. But outside, it's been a little sketchy. Well, they really have increased the ability to distinguish between humans and animals. And this one is one of them. And additionally, it's got a flashing red and blue light. So you program it to say after 10 o'clock, if somebody's in this lot, they're not supposed to be, that red and blue light will start flashing, and a voice will emit, say you're in a deterred area, leave at this moment. And that's just been real effective. Regretfully, so far, we can't customize the recordings to things like you're in range, or we can see through the scope or whatever. But that's a pretty neat deal, and it's $1,000 camera. That's come down quite a bit price-wise. So it's got the technology to distinguish between humans and other things. That's a big deal for us.
Yeah.
That's been a few years coming. So we're selling a lot of those. Another thing you can do with the PTZ. Let me show you. Here's another. I think that's a great shot there. And then this is really interesting. If you can see my cursor up there, that's a barn clear in the background in that top picture. Can you kind of see that line?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the pictures right below it are that barn through a camera of ours from this location.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
These cameras can go out a half mile or more with real good accuracy. So
That's crazy.
yeah, isn't that nice? Yeah, that's a good picture.
So you can spy on your neighbors, is what you just said.
I didn't say that, but it's possible. That brings up one subject that you kind of have to share with everybody. Farmers have had certain hygiene habits over the years, and when you have cameras looking everywhere, You gotta change that a little bit. You're from the farm, you gotta be a little more careful about where you do that. Just wanted to throw that out there. Otherwise, you're gonna be on camera. So, that would be hard for me to change too. Commodity building, some more fuel barrels. That's a nice shot. I guess it's a Budweiser truck. I hadn't noticed that. Interesting. Now, a lot of people like to have a camera in their shop because there's lots and lots of tools in there. And it's just interesting how sometimes those disappear. So one or at the most two cameras usually can cover most shops. Then you got to get a recording of what's going on and what's coming and going and so forth. That's inside the shed there. And then if you want total coverage, you put a camera in each corner and you can get the whole shop all the time. Another picture of the maternity pen. I think that Maybe has some activity going there.
It looks like she's doing something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's a calf that was just born moments ago. That's kind of a neat picture. We like that. So that's the kind of stuff that's pretty nice to know. You can be out on the tractor and keep an eye on the phone and see when the calf comes in. So.
Yeah.
Dairies are a big customer of ours. There's a lot of things to watch at a dairy. And that's probably where we do more employee watching than just about anything else is the chicken and the egg company has a lot of employees, but the dairy guys, so we're watching their guys and we're watching that they do things right as far as washing the udders and so forth, or when they're doing it wrong, but if they're doing it right, you can use that as training for other employees. And it also a safety issue, you know, it's a dangerous place on the farm. If an accident happens, then you have the employee has some kind of recourse to go back and maybe they can find out what happened, correct it. Same thing with animals. Animal gets injured, you go back and look at the video. Was it the way we had the gate? Pipestone is in an ongoing issue with how much they use prods. You know, you've got small women trying to herd hundreds of pounds worth of sow that don't want to go, that doesn't want to go where they want to go. So there has to be some kind of break even point there. So there's a lot of uses for cameras in the animal welfare access, but dairy is certainly one of them. And that is interesting. That back wall is 220 feet back there. So that's a pretty long shot too. And one thing about milk, it's such a susceptible product because somebody goes in there and taints your milk. It could ruin you for a long time or for good. So they really like to keep an eye on that milk tank and what's going and what's happening with the tank. And so they have some security. We do a lot of tank rooms just like that. So you know what's going on because it really is vulnerable. That's your bread and butter there. And it's accessible to the bad guys if they wanted to do something. That's a PTZ up on a grain leg. We do a lot of grain legs, it gets it up in the air and you can really see a long ways. Now this is in our egg processing situation. This is a big customer of ours. Obviously they're providing all the eggs from McDonald's. I forget how many millions of eggs they produce every day, but they have one big plant in Ida Grove that we primarily take care of there and another one up in Wisconsin. Well, that's a whole different ballgame. You know, we're keeping an eye on the eggs, we keep an eye on employees. It's funny when you put cameras in, tension between employees and fights kind of tend to settle down. I don't know why they fight so much, but I guess they're working hard together in close quarters, but it really helps contain all that somewhat. So, and you know, it's not that they're doing wrong. It just seems like, and then a lot of times people will forget the cameras are there too. And you really find out what's going on in real time. Some more egg production, lots of eggs. Of course, pork is a big part of our business, especially with Pipestone. So we do a lot of work in the pork industry. And we know you guys are involved in all kinds of buildings, not just cattle buildings. So we wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Load out is a real important area for these guys. In fact, we're putting one camera in the loadout area in all the pipestone facilities. That's what's driving that is the animal welfare.
Yeah.
And some of the farms have expanded and done other cameras, but that's really the point of concern is taking care of the hogs. And just general, people want to know how their food is being raised. Even the people in the city more and more want to know that kind of thing. So this is another way that the PTZ can be used. So the PTZ is moving all the time. It can move a short distance or it can do 360 degrees. But what we can do is we'll set up a bullet camera, which is a single vision camera looking at a driveway. So that bullet camera acts as a trigger. A car comes up and then the PTZ will come around immediately and take a picture of it. Gentlemen,
Come on in. Help yourself, have a sandwich.
how you guys doing?
Good.
Good. You hear there was some food here?
Oh, he really didn't.
So that's kind of a neat use for the PTZ. So in other words, that's kind of a combination of the PTZ and turning it into a license plate camera because it does have an extremely strong lens in it, so it can capture that kind of thing. Okay, it's not the greatest picture, but if you look right here, there's a little disc and there's another disc over here. It's what we use to transmit signals wirelessly. So let's use an example of we've got cows in a barn, but there's no internet in the barn. So we put the cameras in the barn, we put what looks like a small Frisbee, sends a signal to wherever the internet is so we can get it on the internet and you can look at it at your devices. We have gone 9 miles over level ground with this product. It's come from a company called Ubiquity. They make some of the big time wireless stuff. So it's got plenty of power to cover most any, mile and a half is what we work with a lot of time where they have a remote location with a grain leg or something. So, but that's how we move our signals around. So, no, our cameras are not wireless, but we can send that signal wirelessly over distances.
Okay.
That's just kind of an idea. If you get a bunch of cameras up, you can put them all up and have a monitor in your office and just kind of glance at things when you go by and see what's going on. That's pretty common. And I guess that's about all I have for the videos. See, I mentioned the PTZs. I guess the other thing I like to stress, and this is just always talk until you see it, but we really take care of our customers. I mean, we're a pretty small company, but we'll go wherever we have to take care of our customers. And, we have a 2-year complete warranty on all our products and service, but I can tell you we've done some service on systems that have exceeded that. So we just don't want to be bragging about it, but we do take care of everybody. So if you choose us to put a system into one of your customers' barns, it's going to be taken care of.
So can you go back to some of the livestock pictures?
Sure.
What I'm more interested in is like in a hog barn, what's the optimal place to put it back in the back corner so you can see all your pens?
Yeah, it has a little bit to do with how the barn itself is built.
Okay.
But again, the loadout is primarily here. You can see we've got to get the camera up a little higher to look down into the pens. And I'm not trying to avoid the answer to your question, but we need to usually look at the prints and get an idea of what you guys want to look at. So we can do whatever. We can put cameras on the pens, the loadout. With the biosecurity issues, most everybody wants a camera on the outside to see who's coming and going also. Sure. So when we design our systems, this may tie into what you're thinking of too, Brian, we'll always design our systems with extra capacity. So our MVRs come in 8, 16, 32, 64, as far as camera inputs. So when we design a system and you've got 8 or 9 cameras, we're going to sell you a 16 channel MVR because most everybody will find a place they like a camera later. Mm-hmm. And then you don't have to sit down and think of every place you want a camera when you design the system. Right. Because it tends to be over the years, you may find some places you want to add camera. So that's important to know that we always engineer extra capacity into the system. So you can just plug another camera in. You don't have to start with a whole nother MVR and so forth. Okay. So we can literally put as many cameras in a hog operation as you want.
Okay. So I guess it would determine what I would want to see, I guess.
Correct. Right? Yeah, and it varies somewhat with farm to farm, but yeah. And again, we're kind of working through that. We're in a multiple year situation with Pipestone. We've learned a lot about the hog business there. So they like to keep an eye on the employee rooms and the loadouts, and not so much the pens, but somewhat, I guess I would say. Does that help at all?
Yeah, because so on the cattle side, you know, when we talk about cattle barns, whether they be deep pit or bed pack or whatever the case might be, you had mentioned earlier you're using this particular unit.
We're using a more sophisticated unit like this, a little bit bigger, in the case of Franzenhuber's barn, for instance, because you've got a completely open barn from one end to the other. You don't have walls or anything. So we'll put one of these right in the middle of the barn, and it'll be able to see every corner, every nook and cranny of that whole barn.
And this one can zoom also. Is that-
Correct,
okay.
yeah. This just doesn't have the distance capability of the one that we'll be using at Franzenhuber's.
Okay.
It's just a better suitor for that situation. So that one camera will really cover their situation. I mean, we could do the same thing with fixed cameras, but the PTZ gives you more flexibility to zoom in and see, I mean, ear tags, whatever you want to see. You can figure
Is
out.
it always rotating and?
You program it to do whatever you want to do. So you can program it to run around in 2 minutes or 30 minutes, or you can program it to look a little further that way and come back. Just almost unlimited. You get a screen with blocks on it to show it, to show the camera where you want it to look.
So I'm assuming that farrowing with the hogs that you had up there is set to look in different areas since you.
That is probably a fixed camera.
Okay,
I'm sorry. And we can do the same thing with multiple fixed cameras also. That looks like it was a fixed camera. We use more PTZs with cattle because you got bigger spaces and so forth. I think we would use more fixed cameras in hog installations. So we just looking at one particular section.
and you're hooking them up to just electricity and then the video is going to a drive?
So we,
Or
all
are
our,
you hardwired on both?
they're hardwired with Cat5. If you're familiar with Cat5, that's telephone cable. It's got 8 small cables inside of it. So 4 of them are taking power out to the camera, and 4 of them are bringing the video signal back on in one wire. Used to be just a few years ago, you had to run a cable for power and for the video signal. Now it's combined. It's called Internet Protocol is what our system is called. And it's so everything runs through the Cat5. So then we'll bring the cables back to what we call our MVR, which is the control box, plugs directly into that. Everything's controlled through there. Does that answer that make sense? Okay. One other thing I want to point out on these systems, there's a lot of different business models out there for what we do, and a lot of them involve monitoring and collecting data and so forth and charging it by the month. None of that applies to us. We design and install the system, show your customers how to run it, and there's no more charge. They can get as many apps as they want from our manufacturer to download to their phone and their laptop, as many as they want for free to use the system ongoing. So just like to point that out. I used to brag a little bit about, you should talk to your insurance guy, but I don't know. They don't get too excited about video security systems yet. So I don't brag about that. You might want to mention it to your insurance guy. You never know. There might be a little discount for it. But I think that has a look, now that I think about it, the ones that monitor it all the time are more attractive to the insurance people than one like ours. It's just there to review.
So regarding durability, so hog barn is not so bad, other than it could be a little caustic. I'm assuming that is the majority of that plastic or protected from moisture?
Correct.
Okay.
Hog barns really are about the toughest environment we work in. It's just because
As compared to like an open
yeah,
cattle barn?
yeah, it's tough on the wiring and the washing and everything.
Mhm.
So that's why our equipment, you don't go to the internet and buy. It's a higher level of equipment. It's made to withstand the heat, the cold, the weather. The outdoor PTZ actually has a device that shakes the snow off of it. So it's designed to work in rugged environments. And that's why we constantly hear about guys that have struck out on their own, and that's okay. They've got some cameras off the internet, they put their own system up and it worked okay for a year or a few months. Or it's just not built to the same degree of ruggedness is what I would say. So.
And so then the cabling, is it recommended through conduit or?
And it's inside, we hide it as much as we can, of course, in the hog buildings. We usually only use conduit when we're outside, and we don't do that very often. Occasionally we'll bury a line, but if the distance gets very much at all, we're gonna use the wireless system. It's just, because you put wires in the ground and freezing and thawing, and they're moving around, and it's just not as, and it's a lot more expensive to do in the meantime. So we don't have a lot of wires running outside too.
Okay.
And you know, we've got systems up, we put up for, I guess we've been at it almost 9 years now, and they're still working great. The technology's changed in some cases. The cameras have gotten a lot better, that's for sure. Oh my gosh.
So if you go back up to like where the picture was of the license plate.
Yeah.
One. So if I've got multiple operations, and not that one, yeah, that one right there. So if I've got multiple operations of, how do I tie, or is it just a software issue to tie a camera like that in so I can see who's coming on and off property, versus then I have maybe some in my barns, I guess.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Is this the same technology? So what my question is the camera that is used to take the picture of the license plate and verify if they can come in and go, is it the same camera that would be in a hog barn watching the same thing? Is it a software that makes this happen?
It's a software, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a software
And
package.
is it all integrated into one where I just have my laptop or my desktop or whatever, or does everything kind of come in and then I can
Correct.
still do everything off my phone?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, you would have to have a software package for each camera or each gate.
Sure, that I
Just so you
get.
want, and you know, it's not inexpensive at this point. I'm sure it'll probably get less expensive, but you do have to have the software package again for each individual entry point. So, yep.
So you're saying that camera there rotates like every 30 minutes or whatever?
Correct.
Can I move that from my phone?
Correct.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
zoom in and out
Yeah.
from my phone and.
Yeah, you guys missed it. We call this a PTZ because it pans, it tilts, and it zooms in and out. Pan, tilt, zoom. This is a smaller version we have. The reason I brought this one, it's got a red and blue flashing light on it, and it actually emits a sound that says you're in a deterred area. So it kind of gets people's attention a little bit more. We have the bigger ones. We're going to install one in one of the barns that these guys built tomorrow. So it can view, we're gonna put it right in the middle of the barn on a pedestal, so it hangs down. We can see every inch of that barn, including what's right directly below it. And he can get on and control it from your phone. And then it'll be recording also, and you can also access the recording from your phone. You guys came in a little late. Do you have some questions? There's some information there in the brochure. Sure appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to see the cattle pictures he had in his presentation? Can you hold those
Yep.
up again, please?
That's kind of what we, for a cattle barn, I guess.
You got cattle?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what camera that's from. That looks like it might be from a fixed camera. Here's another shot of the cattle barn.
So you can zoom in and out on these fixed cameras too, or?
Some of them, yes, absolutely, yeah, they vary, but if you have a mechanized zoom, you absolutely can, yeah. How big a space are you wanting to keep an eye on?
Oh, our ones, both barns are probably 40 by 100s, and then there's a smaller barn too.
And are they partitioned off at all? Can you see from one end to the other? Are they open?
Yeah, you can see from one end to the
So
other.
one PTZ would work in your situation. I mean, we're glad to come and take a look at it, but one, you know, you can use multiple fixed cameras or one of these is what it comes down to. And the cost comes out about the same, generally speaking, because these are more expensive, but they do more. But they see further, they see more clearly, and they see further at night also. They have a lot longer.
Can you
night.
show the night picture of it then, so these guys could see? Which I was surprised at the clarity of the night shots.
Find it here.
So like how far would like that one see you if I put it on a line pole or something outside?
I was gonna ask you to show that one where you could see the barn.
Yeah, let me do that. We'll get to that. There's a night and day view there. And John put this together for me. There's daytime and there's night. Oh, I had one with the calves too, didn't I? Actually, our cameras are even better at night now, because before it just went to gray, but now they actually have color at night vision too. We just didn't pull anything off that way, so that's getting better all the time. And if you have a little ambient light, like just a little bulb or something, that makes it even better at night. You can see really well. Let me show you a picture of this lot that we were talking about. That's a PTZ up on a leg. A bigger one of these up on a leg that you can really see. Now, this is the picture we kind of liked. Clear up here on the top where my little cursor is, that's a building right there. And this is a picture of that building through that PTZ camera from that property.
It's pretty impressive. We were,
Yeah.
yeah, it took me a minute to figure things.
Yeah, it takes a little bit
Yeah.
to adjust to what that is. Yeah, that's a big feeder up on the Minnesota Iowa
Basically, what
border.
he says is don't pee outside then on that side.
Well, you gotta think about that a little bit more. I mean, if you wanna be on the internet, that's fine, but hygiene habits do have to change a little bit.
At least know what your neighbor has.
Your neighbor better be careful what he's
Safe
doing
on your
too.
place, it's what you do.
We don't tell the neighbors about our cameras we put up like that.
Now, how high in the air are like this shot? I mean, yeah, obviously this is more of a fisheye,
Yeah,
so it could be to see, are we 30 foot in the air, 50?
probably a little bit more. That looks like it's up on the grain leg also, so it could, you can. You don't have to go as high as some people do, I guess. You just want to be able to see as far as you can and get over buildings is the biggest advantage of putting it up high like that.
Okay.
And did I answer your question about the way you program this? You can program it to do a tour, whatever
Yeah.
speed you want, once an hour, once every 5 minutes. That's what another advantage of those, and you can make it look a little further this way, because as you come around the building, it's closer on that side, so we can program on all the seats.
So it's moving constantly for recording purposes, but then when you're observing. like
Well, you
on
can
your
program
phone,
it to
You can actually make it go.
Yeah,
zoom in on other
exactly.
stuff.
And it can stay still too. We use these cameras in either in a completely still mode, or maybe just have it sweep just a short distance. It doesn't have to go 360. It just has advanced capabilities as far as distance and night vision and so forth. So if you got an area that you just want to keep an eye on a long ways away, you just maybe go real slow back and forth like that.
Okay.
And again, you can get in and override it and drive it from your phone.
Mhm.
More questions? You guys? Is that kind of what you were thinking of, having that capability? So is this feeding barns or calving or both? Oh. Do you know the Friends and Loopers?
I've heard of the name, but.
We're putting in a Kyle, that's what they got as a bedding barn for calves, and he's all excited because his house is down along the way, and
Yeah.
he doesn't like walking up that hill in the middle of the night in the winter for some reason, so I don't know. But yeah, it's a great use for the calving aspect of it. Once you have cameras for that, you just don't want to really go back. That's a newborn right there that we just got a picture of just after it dropped.
You don't have the ability to access one of your cameras and show any of that, do you?
I should have, but I'm not prepared to do that. So I could do that another time though, for sure. That's a good point. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. Unfortunately, I'm the pretty face of the company and not the technical guy. That's a joke, You know
I wasn't gonna say.
Yeah, I
anything
hope
at
you know
all.
that's a joke, yeah.
Was not on the tip of my tongue. I just know you said that your installer has a lot of cameras up that you guys test run.
Yep,
So I didn't know if you.
well,
had
we've got access to a lot of our cameras.
I mean,
I don't use them as much.
We wouldn't want you to access a customer's cameras and show them around, but I didn't know if you had access.
Maybe
to
we can find somebody doing something they're not supposed
I was
to do.
gonna say, be careful.
I don't know if that's
That would be
something that
funny.
if you did a thing for this. that you
So you're thinking maybe just one camera in your guys' barn probably would
One in
take.
each one.
Yeah, oh, one in each one, yeah. Yeah, they'd be handy. so,
That's a
yeah.
picture right there. I like the picture of Kelly too.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I'd be driving, a mile or two at night,
Yeah,
be looking on the
This
phone.
stipend family has
well, especially if it's
hours.
snowing or pouring rain, I mean, no reason to get that, if you could just watch it on your phone, it'd be.
I live on
Oh, yeah.
You can call Dad and say, "Hey, go check on that."
We can put a camera on him and keep an eye on him too.
That's right.
So one thing guys like to do too is they got a remote property, they'll go see if they need to plow snow. You know, they might
Oh,
not need
yeah.
to go over to plow snow. You can just use it for, got a camera outside on the driveways, then you can just use it that way
Yeah.
too, so.
Gonna need to be able to access that on your phone or. Be able to see that.
The Steichen family in North Dakota, they had cameras in their new finisher.
Oh, yeah.
And they saved a calf that got, I think it was stuck or it bloated, or it got stuck and then bloated, I'm not sure, but they saved it, and it was when the wife was home alone, she went and saved it. And then 2 weeks later, they played a joke on her, and they said that it was happening again, and she raced out, and there was nothing in the barn, they had just emptied the barn out or something like that, and so apparently they play around with those quite a bit.
Oh, so they showed her a picture of it? The same
No, they
one?
just called her and said it, the camera showed.
Oh,
this and this, and
okay,
so she raced
oh.
up there, nothing.
Yeah, I bet those guys paid after that though.
Yeah.
They may be sorry they did that.
So do you guys have internet access out to the place then?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have it in the barn?
No, it'd be in the house, it'd be 200-300 yards from the
Can you
barn.
see the house from the barn?
Yeah.
Then we'll just set it wirelessly. to
Yeah,
the
were you here
house.
when he showed the little wireless, how that would work? Why don't you go to that?
Yeah.
that picture? What it is, there's a little transmitter that would be at the barn that hooks, kind of like your rural radio type thing, right to the house.
That dish right there?
Oh, yeah, we see it.
It's
Yeah,
like a-
okay.
Looks like a small frisbee. And then
I
there's
guess
that
then the
one.
other barn is probably a mile or two away though, would that
Can you-
reach
Is there
that?
a line of sight? Can you see it?
Nah,
If you got up high a little bit, could you?
maybe, yeah.
We just
High
need to,
enough, I
we need
guess.
to have line of sight. Distance wise, we've gone 9 miles. So if we have it smooth with no buildings and you can see it, then we can connect it. Either, the better way would be put the transmitter up a little higher, coming back into your house. Now, in the case of the Franz Loopers, we actually have to go around a corner. I don't know if you're familiar with their property. They've got a big, their house is behind kind of a wall of dirt, and then they have big pine trees on top of it, windbreak. So you can't go right from the house up to the barn, so we're gonna go to an old hog house, put one there, and then bounce it up the hill. So we're kind of going around. You can use multiple wireless things too. So if we had to, we could probably figure out a way to do that. Or I can always come out and take a look at it too for you guys, if you're interested, so. Does that
Yeah.
make sense how I'm talking about
Yeah.
Franz Looper? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Now that I think about their property, you're right, it is.
Yeah, they got that old hog, kind of low hog perk. We'll just sit it right there. We don't even have to go up. I mean, we could go up on the side of the grain bin, but that's just more complicated.
Yeah.
We'll just put it on the corner of that hog building and shoot right up the hill.
Makes sense.
You got about a 400-foot cell one tower, about 100 feet from this barn. Can we? Is that,
You got what now? So,
cell one's got a satellite tower
yeah,
on my property,
yeah,
close to where one of the barns is.
okay.
Is that,
Will they let you put something on there or?
well, I haven't talked to them.
So that might be a place you're saying we could bounce it from that tower back down the house? Yeah. Well, if it's on your property, they must be paying you to have it there, correct? You must have a little say what goes on
I
there.
don't think so. But
Yeah, that's certainly a
I didn't
possibility.
know if that was a,
All I need is some 110 power. That might be the.
well, there's some right there.
Is there 110?
Yeah.
Then we're good. Yeah.
Or you can do where's the one with
The
The solar.
solar, yeah, well, that might be a little bit of an extravagance for
but it's a thing.
it's certainly doable. Let me see if I can find that, show it to them. Yeah, that's a device, that's a camera on a solar panel in the middle of nowhere, hooked up actually to the phone system, not the internet. The problem with that, of course, is it's more expensive initially, and then the connection to the phone is a lot more expensive. The internet costs you nothing, because we're just uploading it on the internet. So it doesn't affect your service, doesn't cost anything. The internet company doesn't even know you're doing it, so you're just uploading it. So that, does that explain that? So it makes sense, yeah. Questions?
What does cameras run for price or?
Oh, we're gonna jump right to.
I would never have been my first question.
Well, It varies, you know, each system is completely different. What we would really like to do is just look at your situation and do a proposal for you. And I'm not trying to avoid, I don't like shooting from the hip with, because we don't have an installer in every town, so we gotta figure out a little. And he's just up in Minnesota, it's not a long ways, but every job's a little bit different. That's one reason I like working on farms too, is every farm's different. You know, every farm in the world really, I mean, now they're starting to get a little more standardized, but in my day, every farm was different, you know, and it's just interesting because it's barns and everything is in a different place. So I'm gonna tell you right now, we're not the cheapest guy in town. We're probably the best, and we make this stuff to last a long time. We have a 2-year parts and labor complete warranty. We service even after that, so we take good care of you and we make sure it works right, so.
How long does one of those usually last?
You know, we haven't worn any out, you know, I'm not exaggerating, we've been, John and I, we were both doing it for another guy for a while. Since we've been doing it together, I don't think we've had a camera. I mean, we started out from an analog cameras just a little over 5 years ago, we were still selling analog cameras.
I mean, is there like this, your supplier for this with all of the mechanisms involved, do they, you know, this is a 10-year camera?
Well, their warranty's 2-year parts and labor, so you're not gonna get anybody warranting a mechanical.
Not saying warranty passive, but you know, it's most likely expiration date would be.
I'll approach it a different way. I don't sense that these, like my stove at home is going bad. You know, I've had an appliance salesman tell me on the floor that they're designed to go bad in 7 years. I think that's pretty common knowledge with washers and dryers and that kind. That's not the case with these. I don't think there's any kind of limitation on it. And they're pretty simple by and large. There's not a whole lot of mechanical issues to it. So yeah, we just haven't had any equipment fails.
So I guess it'd be safe to say if it works right out of the box, you're good. If not, you notice the problem right
Typically,
away.
that's the case with electronics, yeah, exactly right, yeah.
And your typical system comes with what type of the camera? Like what's all involved with the system when you hook up typically?
You have however many cameras you have an MVR with the hard drive mounted in it, and that's pretty much it. And you want your
MVR, that's the.
MVR is what we call a DVR in our house, and it's a network video recorder. So it's the brains of the whole system. All the cameras come into that box. That's the hard drive is installed in that box. And that's where you do, and then we hook the internet into that box to upload.
And you do that on every, even like that system right there is the same way, or?
Yeah, inside there, actually, there's an MBR in that little gray box doing the same kind of thing. Yeah, that's a weatherproof box. We use a lot of those just to secure things and make sure they don't get moisture.
So like on these guys where they have 2 barns, where would the NVR reside? Would it be at the house?
That's at the house.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
so everything's transmitted to the house. And
the MBR needs to be plugged into the router with a hard wire.
Mhm.
So the only requirement is to get that MBR kind of, do you have an office in the house where that is? That's sometimes the biggest challenge, getting the wire in the house. Putting wires in barns is not a big deal typically. So thinking of where the office is and putting a device on the outside of the house, would it be tough to get to that room or?
It's kind of on the outside of the house.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Go through the ground.
So we just put that receiver on the outside of the house and then run a wire that looks nice into the house. And that's where the MBR would be. And then you want it kind of, I mean, you can have it a few feet away, but we want to run a hard wire from the MBR to the router to give you your best service.
Does kind of the router like differ, I guess, of like how expensive your router, like I know there's different, I don't know what I want to say, but like variances in routers. I guess,
Oh, you're
does
talking
that-
about performance.
Yeah,
speed
and
performance,
that's a good question, because there's 2 things in routers that you look at: download speed, which is what most people are interested in, because that's what you play your games and watch your movies with. We're only interested in upload speed, and we can measure that. And I don't think we've ever gone anywhere that we didn't have enough upload speed. That's very unusual, so you should be fine there. Now, I just got a new router in Omaha where I live, because we have this fiber optic. And I supposedly was paying for this fiber optic and all this extra information. Well, I didn't even have the right router to take advantage of it. So that stuff, you can't depend on the companies to tell you what's going on necessarily, so.
But I guess more than likely, you already have a router, obviously.
Yeah,
So it probably will work, I guess. It
so
depends
what we
on
do
that.
is we just have one dish on your house, And then we can send signals from both barns to that one dish. We don't have to have multiple dishes for multiple barns. Yep, very doable. Adam, you got another question? You've been good so far with questions.
It's Brian's turn again.
I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen about this stuff. I really think it's a value added product for you guys, and it's something that producers want and can use. And Lexi's nice enough to tell me I can even pay for itself. You know, I don't brag about that a lot, but you don't need to save too many cows to have it all paid for. So everybody tells you that though, right? You buy my product and it'll pay for itself.
But it's not only that, but like where you said, what that other barn's about a mile or so away from the house.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, there's just a lot of time and fuel and, you know, all those things, especially the time side.
And I have some guys that, well, I have one guy in particular that watches some hog houses. He comes in the morning and just does a quick review of the recording, just to make sure nobody came through at night they didn't know about. It takes him a minute or so. It's just become a habit of his business day to do that kind of thing. So a lot of guys will like in their office and have a monitor just dedicated to the system. So you have it up all the time. You can just look at it when you're in the house. That's easy to do too. Otherwise, you can just look at it on your phone or your laptop or your iPad or whatever. Wherever you get the internet, you can look at your camera.